I am. Hey, folks, how you doing?
Evening, Ken. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, good. Hey, John, how you doing?
Very
Glad
well,
you can hear me. You know, I'm very efficient at this technology, so I'm pretty impressed with my ability here to get on.
Lifelong learning.
That's right. A long way to go.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, yeah. Why not? Enjoy the festivity. Yep. Yeah, wow. That one. Yep.
We give it another moment or two, just seeing if anyone else we're waiting on. And yeah, I'm not sure who we're waiting on potentially.
Yes, Mary Kate, this is Nanette. I think trustees were all complete. We're just missing Steve Grande.
Yeah, and he might have, as you know, a
Yes.
travel,
Mhm.
which is great. So I'll just ask everyone just to jump on mute and
Right.
then remember to jump off when you're asked something. Okay, so I'd like to call to order the Monday, January 25th, 2021 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees.
Yep.
Annette, would you please conduct the roll?
Yes, Mary Kate Murin,
Here.
Alexander Anderson,
Here.
Well,
Vicky
hey, we give it a
Krause.
shot, right?
excuse me, Vicky Krause,
Here.
Steve Grande, Erica Gopian,
Here.
Bill Johnson,
Here.
Maurice Lindsay,
Here.
Janae McDonald,
Present.
Elizabeth Esposito, Jeff Sattler,
Here.
and Max Starks.
Oh, sorry about that. I just had to join a Zoom meeting. I'm like trustee.
Here. Thank you.
Madam Chair, you're on mute.
That'd be helpful if everyone can just mute. Thank you so much. Mute your phones would be really helpful. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ken Tashi. And as you know, he's our Chief Legal Counsel to discuss the program reinstatements and in cooperation with Dr. Cook.
Hey, Mary Kate, thank you very much. Good afternoon, folks. Appreciate your time. John, I'll just go through some of the items I've got laid out, and Mary Kate, and if board members want to ask questions during, after, feel free to proceed however you'd like. So
Thanks,
what
Ken.
I've been asked to do is try to cover briefly what the collective bargaining issues are that are implemented and implicated with the potential reinstatement of several programs at the college. And just as a little bit of background, before these decisions were made, my office as the legal office and representatives of your institution had multiple and lengthy meetings with the NCCC over the potential to discontinue these programs. These occurred over the summer. The discussions included, among other things, discussions around programmatic, budgetary, and enrollment data and information, identified those programs that were under consideration for discontinuation. And ultimately, the question really revolved around sustainability of those programs. In light of the information that was provided, or excuse me, the information that was referenced in those sessions, the union understandably asked for copies of all the data, which was provided and was available to them throughout the process. Ultimately, there were 7 programs that were identified for discontinuation. And I think we're gathering here tonight to look at those programs. Some of them, all of them, none of them for possible re-implementation and reinstitution at the institution. So the process for this is really dictated in large measure by the collective bargaining agreement. And once a decision is made, we can go through, and my office will work very closely with college administrators to follow the collective bargaining agreement for the appropriate implementation. But just as a really general overview, we really start out with, once the board makes a decision tonight, whatever that decision is, it'll be directed to the president, and the president, with his responsibility as a delegated representative, will act under the authority as conveyed by the board. So to the extent you've decided to reinstate one or more programs, the president will move forward with that decision in accordance with the collective bargaining agreement and in accordance with the board vote. Now, there's a number of procedural steps that have to happen once that occurs. First and foremost, there's going to have to be notice to and discussion with the affected union or unions on those ultimate decisions. That notice is going to cover a variety of issues that hopefully get resolved in at least one session. There might be need for more than that, but I think one probably would be sufficient. But first and foremost, we're going to identify the programs that would be reinstated if that's your pleasure. There'll ultimately have to be a timeline established for the orderly reinstatement of the programs, whether it's all at once or it's going to be over a period of time. There's also going to have to be the implementation of the faculty recall process under the collective bargaining agreement. I'll talk about that in a minute. And there's also going to have to be some consideration of the effect that an early retirement incentive program had on some of the faculty that were involved with the discontinuation of these programs. So just, you may be aware, but around the same time as these programs were under consideration for elimination, the college had also offered an early retirement incentive program. And the college extended that program to all the faculty that were affected by retrenchments as a result of elimination of these programs. And those faculty that were eligible for state retirement would then in turn be eligible for this early retirement incentive. And the incentive was a monetary incentive. And one of the, it's not a terribly large complication, but it's one we have to absolutely be aware of, is that the agreement that was reached with the union indicated that if any faculty, affected faculty, were recalled within a year, then if they wanted to accept the recall, they would have to repay the monetary incentive. That was part of what was negotiated and bargained for with the union. Doesn't mean a faculty member has to accept recall. They don't have to accept it. They can reject it and keep the monetary incentive. But again, if they do accept recall within a year of receiving the incentive payment, then they've got to repay that monetary incentive. This whole process that I just went through, sort of at a 30,000-foot level, is going to be coordinated through my office, 2 attorneys in my office, my labor chief and associate counsel for labor. They, working with college administrators, will coordinate those discussions with the union and the recall process as is laid out in the collective bargaining agreement. And to the extent the Board of Higher Ed is needed to weigh in, or we're obligated to provide notice to the Board of Higher Ed, because it ultimately is, quote, the employer for collective bargaining purposes. My staff would be doing that along in consultation with your administrative staff. Now, part of the recall process is going to require President Cook to make a determination as to appropriate staffing levels once some or all these programs are reinstituted. And that's done on a case-by-case basis. This is generally what the process includes whenever at any of the other community colleges where we've had programs reinstated, the president or designee has to make a determination for each one of those programs what the level of recall is going to be. In some cases, all prior instructors and staff are recalled. In other cases, it may be a reduced number. And that is a decision that's based on a number of factors. Industry demands for a particular graduate in a program, current student demands for enrollment in that type of program, enrollment history, employment opportunities, and also budgetary considerations. So this is something, again, that we've worked through with other institutions. We would work with the president, his staff, and/or designees on that recall process. Again, it's for a large part dictated by the collective bargaining agreement. And I should also emphasize too, that recall rights for faculty exist for up to 4 years. So if there was an initial recall at this point, there could always be a subsequent recall because those rights do remain in effect for up to 4 years. If a faculty rejects a recall right, then they are no longer on the recall list. But again, if based on factors, there may be a necessity today to bring back 1 or 2 instructors in a program where there may have been more previously, the college always has the discretion down the road to increase that and exercise those recall rights up to 4 years. And ultimately, it would be always my recommendation that any president in these circumstances will be keeping the chair and the board informed of the reinstatement process as it's developed and as it moves forward. I also, though, always caution that you probably want to steer clear in board meetings of speaking about any particular personnel decisions. As you all know, you're a governmental body, you practice and operate under the open meeting law. Generally, we don't engage in discussions about personnel matters or personnel issues, specific personnel matter issues at board meetings, because virtually all of that's got to be in an open session. And in most cases, personnel matters are confidential. So that's generally the process that would be followed and how we would recommend proceeding if in fact the board decides to reinstitute some or all of the affected programs. And, again, 30,000 foot view, and I can go in a little bit more detail as necessary and respond to, well, hopefully respond to whatever questions you might have.
Great, thanks, Ken. That was really great just to give that 30,000. So I wanted to open it up to the trustees if they had any questions for you when we still had you part of. And we're so glad that you figured out the technology, Ken, that we had you here.
Thank you very much.
I have a question. Are we aware of how many of the faculty actually took the financial incentive and what the dollar amount is attached to that?
I don't have that information on my end. I'm assuming the institution would have that information. And it would be specific only to those individuals who were eligible for state retirement. They then would in turn also have been eligible. So it won't be the whole number of faculty that were in that cohort of discontinued programs, but I'm assuming that that information is absolutely available at the institution.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions for Ken while we have him here? Just want to give a couple of minutes.
I just wonder if he has any thought on what would be, in terms of the timeline, what would you recommend? That would be a reasonable timeline.
As far as reinstituting, re-implementing these programs? Yes. I guess my thought would be that if the board decides tonight to reinstitute some or all of the programs, your expectation it's going to be done sooner rather than later. But exactly what a timeline would be there were a number of implications. We're currently in January. If we were to reinstitute these programs, and again, I don't have sort of on the ground factual data to support this, but if we're going to be looking to reinstitute these programs, we're going to have to find a cohort of students to enroll in these programs. We're already towards the end of January. The semester has begun. We probably wouldn't be in a position to start looking at admission opportunities until probably summer semester, maybe even fall semester, but I would defer to the institution, the administration on that type of timeline. But I just think that would be one of the realistic considerations that would have to be made. Also, too, there may be some faculty that would be willing and accepting recall, and it may be a matter of also trying to accommodate some changes in their own lives that may have occurred. They may be in circumstances right now where we need to have some time for the re-implementation of each one of these programs. I'm going to suggest that's a good way of a lawyer saying it depends. And, to the extent that, that the administration can weigh in on that, I think that's probably the best course of action.
I think we've all had a lawyer at one time or another tell us, right? It depends.
Appreciate that.
Great. So thank you so much, Ken. Really, really helpful information. And I think we'll definitely be in touch as we move forward, but really appreciate your time tonight.
All right. Look, I very much appreciate your time. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Take care, folks. Bye-bye.
So I wanted to turn it over to Dr. Cook first to talk about the budget context related to that federal funding.
Yeah, very briefly. Given the sort of budget-focused conversation tonight and with the motion for your consideration, more of just a check-in. What's unfortunate is I don't have more information beyond the email advisory that I sent to the Board of Trustees around those supplemental funds. Obviously, there is hope and encouragement, but as to how we can use them, we do not have that guidance yet. So again, I'm not sure if there might be some questions, but particularly with our needs, can we apply it against salary for full-time employees? Can we use it for our facilities and capital projects? We unfortunately don't have answers to those questions right now.
Any ETA, Dr. Cook, of when you might be able to get some of those answers? Are we talking like 30 days, 60 days, or?
I think anything that I offered would really be a guess at best. I think because they are federal, and obviously with a new administration that is really particularly focused on COVID vaccination distribution, it could be some time. Again, it would be really helpful if, as part of our own budgeting process, let's say in April in particular, we have much better clarity, but it may take until then.
I think if you're waiting for the federal government to do anything, it's going to be a while. I mean, between the COVID vaccination and all the other stuff that they've put on their plate with impeachment and everything else, it's their priorities are set.
Whether that's good news or bad news, right, Eric? Depending. I think it could be a little bit of both.
Yeah, I'll be the lawyer. It depends.
Okay, it depends. That's right. Great. Any questions for Dr. Cook? Wasn't a lot of answers, but unfortunately, that's sometimes what happens with federal funding. Great. Hearing none, I want to transition right into the support of program reinstatements. We have a motion on the table that has been moved by the ad hoc committee to the Ways and Means. And I wanted to know if someone would be willing to read the motion for a full Board of Trustee vote.
I'll read it.
Great.
Okay. For motion number 2021-05 in support of program reinstatement, that the Springfield Technical Community College Board of Trustees, as recommended by the Ad Hoc Committee on Program Discontinuations and the Committee on Ways and Means, supports reinstatement of the following programs: biomedical engineering technology, biotechnology, civil engineering technology, landscape design and management, and dental assisting. Further, in support of reinstatement, in fiscal year 2022, the Board of Trustees, pursuant to the provision of Section 22, Chapter 15A, authorizes the president of the college and or his designee or designees to take any and all prudent steps necessary to reinstate programs with the use of unrestricted funds.
Great. Thank you, Trustee McDonald. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Trustee Krause?
Yep.
Any additional discussion?
This is Bill Johnson. What is, I guess, I apologize for lack of my ignorance here. What's the definition of unrestricted funds? Does that mean taking money out of the rainy day fund?
I'm going to look to my team to clarify, but no, those would be reserves. Those would otherwise have been spelled out differently. These essentially are sort of within the operational scope of the budget.
So again, correct me if I'm wrong, the college currently right now with these programs that are discontinued is in the black, for lack of a better term, is we're not showing in the red. We're positive. We have a 25% enrollment downturn. Is that correct?
We're at about 20% point in time.
20%.
Yeah.
We don't know if things are going to get better or not. So we balanced the budget. So now I just don't see where these funds are coming from. For whatever reason, people are not going to get them. You know, you can't hire anybody right now. I got positions open. You just can't get anybody to even apply. People aren't applying to a college. We're kind of like stuck in this limbo. If we were talking about this for fiscal year 23, I'd be all on board here to talk about it. But I think part of the trustees' responsibility is financial, fiduciary responsibility. Nobody has told me where this money is going to come from to put these programs back, and how the books are going to be balanced, the budget's going to be balanced with these programs coming back. I'd like to hear that.
Hey, Trustee Johnson, this is Trustee Stark. So we had that discussion at the Ways and Means, and the cost of bringing these programs back fit within our operating budget. It didn't take us in the red. I hear your point about, certainly if you pushed it out to 2023, it's less of an unknown just because it's of the timing. But again, I mean, the enrollment could, if we get a vaccine, enrollment could change, and we could be looking at enrollment changing pretty considerably. None of us know, right? But given the
correct, I think that's the point I'm making. I'm already hearing that there might be some issues with the vaccine. I don't know. I just think we're getting way. I mean, we all knew programs were being cut. I don't think Dr. Cook singled me out to call me last summer and discuss this. I think every trustee was spoken to, and I'm just still taken back how everybody is saying, "Oh, we didn't know programs were being cut." I mean, we all knew we had to balance the budget. I commend Dr. Cook for doing what he had to do. Some tough decisions had to be made. And again, I'm repeating myself. If we weren't talking about these 7 programs, we'd be talking about a different 7 programs that were cut. And I think it's irresponsible of us to put programs back when we're still in this flux of unknown. But seems like I'm in the minority here.
So just an overall statement too is that given what happened, there was a desire from the Board of Trustees to establish an ad hoc committee, which I did as chair. And those board members who wish to participate in that ad hoc to do an in-depth cross-collaborative process with faculty, staff, administration, and the trustees came forth with a motion that after hearing additional information that went to the Committee on Ways and Means, it came out of the Committee on Ways and Means, and now it's before the board. And then everyone, Trustee Johnson will have an opportunity to vote yes or no on the motion. So hopefully that just to reiterate the process that we went through as a board with this topic.
Correct. I was on the subcommittee. I recall all that.
Understood.
I just, like I said, I don't know. I just feel if we ran our own businesses the way we're trying to run the college, we'd be bankrupt. But that's my personal opinion, and I don't know. I hope it works out, but I don't think we're making the right move. But like I said, it seems like I'm in the minority, so I'll turn the floor over to somebody else.
Any additional comments before the vote?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fair to say that in the Ways and Means Committee, we voted to move this out of committee for discussion and potential, passing or failing of the this motion. So I think the discussion is warranted. Trustee Johnson, I totally understand and respect your feeling. I feel very similarly. You know, the college runs, I mean, we may have a balanced budget, but at the end of the day, most of these programs are in the red. So, you know, what we found was that the cancellation of these programs was very impactful to the community and perhaps to the students as well, future students. So, you know, we want to do everything we can to, you know, to help our community, and we're gonna, you know, it's gonna be a tough road. The big concern that I have isn't necessarily putting the programs back in, because I think we'll figure out how to make that happen, and when we do have a herd immunity at some point and so forth, I agree with Trustee Starks. I think it'll, you know, things will snap back, but the concern that I have is relative to what happens if they don't, and we have to, you know, revisit this again, and it's going to be messy, to say the least.
Correct. That's the point I'm making. I'd be all on board looking at this once we know what's going on next spring, you know, and I mean, but that's my opinion. And anyway.
No, appreciate the comments. That's what we're here for, Trustee Johnson, for sure. Additional comments or discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that, you know, I understand that as trustees, we have a fiduciary responsibility, but it's also been awesome to watch this process and for the community to be patient with us, for the board to be patient with each other while we looked at it from so many different angles. But I think one other responsibility that we need to make sure that we keep in mind is also our responsibility, to the community. And so some people may not realize what a role and the hope that this institution gives to certain members of the community. And so when we removed programs like that so suddenly, it's almost like we took, you know, some bits and pieces of hope from the community. But I completely understand, but I just want to remind everyone of your additional responsibilities in addition to the fiduciary part. And that came to mind, especially as we go through our accreditation process and our self-assessment, which we'll talk more about later.
Thank you, Trustee McDonald.
I think, sorry, Trustee Anderson, I just want to stand by Trustee McDonald and say that she's absolutely right. We do have responsibilities to make sure that as an institution that we're working, but we also have a very big commitment to the community we're serving. And the reason the school is here is to serve the community and help build the community. And if we take away essential pieces from the community, especially as quickly as we did, I mean, no one saw what was coming, and we all knew these tough decisions were coming. But without the amount of communication that I think was needed at first, at least for the community during these hard times, it really does hurt the community now and in the future.
Great, thank you.
And guys, you know, we may very well be back here again. You know, it is what it is, unfortunately. I mean, that no one in this call or on this board has experience with a pandemic. We're all newbies here. And, you know, I sat down with all my teammates at my business in March last year, and I said, look, guys, we're going to be different next year. I mean, our business is going to get banged up. We don't know how badly, but, you know, we have to do everything we can to stay here so that at the end of the process that we're ready to go. And so, you know, I'm happy to say our business wasn't as badly as affected as I thought it would be, but still pretty banged up. But we are at the college, and I respect Dr. Cook for having made these tough decisions. This wasn't popular. I mean, this was tough work, and I commend you, Dr. Cook, for having taken the initiative to do the hard work, and then have to really, frankly, put up with, you know, the backlash. So the good news is we did do the work, and we did look at it from lots of angles, and And I for one, am comfortable with where we are based upon the fact that none of us has the experience to say that we're expert.
Great, thank you.
Mary Kate?
Yes,
It's
yes.
Betty. I would just like to say that I can remember way back, probably a year ago almost, or soon to be a year, talking with Dr. Cook when the COVID hit. None of us had a book to go and reference. There was nothing we could go to see for a plan. We didn't know what was going to happen. And, in the medical field, industry, so there was nothing to go as guidelines. So I think we really did our, maybe there's no lawyer. Is it, we have got a lawyer on here? Do I say due diligence that we did regarding reviewing all the programs and all the sides of them, and of course our finances. But I really think we did our homework on this one. So.
Great, thank you.
This is Trustee Sattler. I'd like to just make a comment too, especially for Bill's edification, being on the Ways and Means Committee. I looked at all of the programs we all have and the historic enrollment for these programs relative to the impact on the budget that we're still working through for 2022. And I fully support reinstating these 5 programs, given that information and not knowing what actual student enrollment in its entirety will look like in fiscal 22, beginning in September. But I think by reinstating these programs and still working through the 22 budget, and the impact from these programs is not a big material change, if you will, based on the overall budget.
Great, thank you. Having heard from most, I'd like to call the vote. Nanette, would you call the roll for the vote, please?
Yes. Mary Kate Murin,
No.
Alexander Anderson,
No.
Vicky Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Grande, Eric Hagopian,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
No.
Maurice Lindsay,
Yes.
Janae McDonald,
Yes.
Elizabeth Bosito,
Yes.
Jeff Sattler,
Yes.
Max Starks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, motion passes. And thank you so much. I'll make some comments with the ad hoc when I get into my report. But at this time, we'd like to transition into the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 23rd, 2020. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Motion to approve, Bill Johnson.
And I think, Eric, I might have been the second.
I'll be a second for sure.
Great, discussion. Hearing none, Nanette, could you please call the roll to accept the meetings of the November 20, make sure I have the right date, 23rd, 2020.
Yes. Mary Kate Murin,
Yes?
Alexander Anderson, Alexander, Vicky Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Grande, Eric Hagopian,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Maurice Lindsay,
Yes.
Janae McDonald,
Yes.
Elizabeth Bosito,
Yes.
Jeff Sattler,
Yes.
and Max Starks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Want to transition into trustee committee reports. The first one is the Committee on Internal and External Relations, Monday, January 4th, 2021. Trustee McDonald?
Thank you. We had a very in-depth and fabulous meeting. We talked about trustee engagement and a NECHI self-study, governance projections. Co-chair Suzanne Smith, Dean of Institutional Research, and Christina Atwater, Professor of Business Administration. They informed the trustees that NECHI had updated their standards this past December, and the college expects to complete the draft by February 14th of 2021. And I believe tonight it will be brought before the full board for a final endorsement. We also heard from the Department of Student Affairs around highlights and initiatives by Darcy Kemp, Vice President of Student Affairs. She provided enrollment overviews and the efforts to address and combat any enrollment decline. These efforts include initiatives like MILE, the Male Initiative for Leadership and Education, focus on serving male students of color, and how the initiative will infuse with AIA, STCC, and the state's equity agenda. We had an update from Workforce Development, highlights and initiatives. Dr. Dave Benora, Assistant VP of Workforce Development. He presented on the workforce development areas such as Springfield Adult Learning Center, also known as SALC, which focuses on adult basic education, the Hampton Prep Program, which is funded by the Mass Gaming Commission, Transitions to College, and English for Speakers of Other Languages, which is in partnership with HCC. He also updated us and gave us some information around career services in the office, connecting students with internships, jobs, and other career coaching services. We also received an update from Advancement and External Affairs Office of highlights and initiatives by Denise Hurst, Vice President of Advancement Internal External Affairs. She updated us on the great job that the college is doing with staying connected with local and statewide legislators, as we know how important that is when it comes to budget ask and other areas of support. She gave us several fundraising effort updates around the STIC conclusion of its first capital campaign with approximately $2.1 million raised, annual giving, Giving Tuesday, the end of year giving appeal, the RAM Warrior Giving, collaborative board of directors, donors cultivation, and an equity focus moving forward on scholarship recruitment and disbursement process. We also received the president's perspective, and he gave us some personnel updates, introducing Andrea Nathanson, our new Vice President CFO, Douglas Slavis, Senior Director of Enterprise Application, which is a significant position for IT. Under promotion is Dorothy Ungerer, who we all know very well and has been working with us, who was promoted. Also, Assistant Controller to Controller is Dr. Kyoto Woods, who has been with the institution for many years in the Advising Center, and she was promoted to Assistant Dean of Students Initiative. There was also a motion for renewal of sabbatical from Teresa Prisbolowitz. I'm sorry if I butchered her name. And we passed a motion unanimously there through roll call. And that concludes the summary update for internal, external.
Great. Thank you so much, Trustee McDonald. Appreciate it. Let us vote to approve first the notes and the committee of Monday, January 4th, 2021. Do I hear that motion to accept the minute meetings?
So moved.
Second.
Great, Vicky?
Yes.
And I'm so sorry I cut somebody off for the second.
Betty, I think it was.
Sorry, Betty. Discussion. Hearing none, could we take the roll, please, Nanette?
Yes. Mary Kate Murin,
Yes.
Alexander Anderson, Vicky Krause,
Yes.
Steve Grande, Eric Hagopian,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Maurice Lindsay,
Yes.
Janae McDonald,
Yes.
Elizabeth Posito,
Yes.
Jeff Sattler,
Yes.
and Max Starks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great, and let's move into the motion that came out of the Committee on Internal and External Relations. Would someone like to read the motion? I will. Motion 2021-07, that the Springfield Technical Community College Board of Trustees approve an extension of sabbatical period for Teresa Frizelich, I'm so sorry, professional nursing until the end of spring 2021 term, contingent upon the Senate budget for Springfield Technical Community College. I hear a second.
Second, Bill Johnson.
Thanks. A discussion.
Prisbilowitz.
Thank you so much.
Well done, Trustee Hagopian. Thank you, trustees,
Thank
for
you.
helping move this forward. Yes, Terry Prisbilowitz has done great work staying in there for us, and this does sort of make her whole, if you will. So I'm grateful for your support.
Absolutely. Nanette, would you please call the roll for the motion?
Yes, Mary Kate Murin,
Yes.
Alexander Anderson, Vicky Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Grande, Eric Hagopian.
Yeah.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Maurice Lindsay,
Yes.
Janae McDonald,
Yes.
Elizabeth Posito,
Yes.
Jeff Sattler,
Yes.
and Max Starks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Our final committee report comes from the Committee on Ways and Means that occurred on Monday, January 11th, 2021. Trustee Starks.
Yes, Madam Chair. We started with a cash flow projection where Controller Dorothy Unger reported on the college's cash flow status and projection for fiscal year 2021. The college currently has approximately $5.4 million available at TD Bank. And assuming a decline of 15% in enrollment for spring, the projected year-end balance at TD Bank is $1.2 million. Ms. Unger noted that we generally like to have about $500,000 at TD Bank, which we will continue to monitor closely given the potential enrollment declines. We then went into a review of our fiscal year 2021 review revenue and spending report through December 2020, led by Senior Director of Finance and Budgets, Jason Cohen. The key points there really are the state appropriation amount for fiscal year 2021 has been confirmed and will be level to the fiscal year 2020 budget amount of $27.9 million. The student revenue is down 20.6% for the spring semester, were the two key points coming out of that. We then went into a fiscal year 2021 first quarter trust fund and vendor expenditure discussion. There were no oddities or issues of note. We then discussed follow-ups to previous meetings, meeting questions before discussing a fiscal year 2022 preliminary outlook led by Andrea Nathanson, the newly hired VP of Administration and CFO. We will be following the normal next fiscal year budgeting process whereby iterations will be reviewed with the Ways and Means Committee starting in March. We then had an ad hoc committee program discontinuations discussion whereby Trustee Hagopian called for the motion we just went through as a full board here. There were 6 yes votes and there was 1 abstain. We then went into our president's discussion, and then we reviewed the NECHE accreditation self-study projections, and then we concluded the meeting.
Great. Thank you so much. Do I hear a motion to accept the Committee on Ways and Means Monday, January 11th, 2021 meeting minutes?
So
Bill Johnson, motion to approve as presented.
second, Vicky Kraus.
Great. Thank you. Discussion? Nanette, would you please call the roll to accept the meeting minutes of the Committee on Ways and Means?
Yes, Mary Kate Murin,
Yes.
Alexander Anderson, Vicky Kraus,
Yes.
Steve Grande, Eric Hagopian,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Maurice Lindsay,
Yes.
Janae McDonald,
Yes.
Elizabeth Posito,
Yes.
Jeff Sattler,
Yes.
and Max Starks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We're going into old business. We have a motion for the trustees to the endorsement of the STCC accreditation self-study. I'm sure everyone read the 106 pages, right, that Christina Atwater and Suzanne Smith with a whole bunch of others put forth. And I know you only have a few short weeks to get that down to 100 pages is my understanding. But it's really important for us to understand what, as Board of Trustees, we've mentioned in multiple meetings about the trustee projections for us to work together as a community. And the word community has come up a lot. And I think this is our opportunity as we go through and start a new calendar year, not a school year, but the calendar year. There is still a lot of work to do. And the entire faculty, staff, administration, and the students are going to need our support as Board of Trustees to ensure that this self-study is finalized, approved, and then our participation at the site visit that will happen in early April. So we'll make sure that we get that on everyone's calendars to see if we can get, maybe some small blocks from everybody so we can have a full participation from the board. So at this time, I just want to turn it over to you, Chris or Sue. Do you have anything additional to potentially add? I'm seeing head shakes no.
No, we can answer any questions that the board might have.
I think that one came up to me is that the projections had some timelines. And I know from the board perspective, there are some things that I think we would want to try concentrate on so that deadlines could be moved up, and that's okay, everybody. The important part was to ensure that we were projecting or committing to the things that we said as a Board of Trustees. So I think that is something we can now really kind of review, dive in deeply during our potential retreat, and really set us up for success for next school year. So I know that did come up earlier. Any questions from trustees on the 106 pages that you read? Hearing none, would someone like to read the motion?
Sure, I will.
Great.
Move that for motion number 2021-08, we move that the Springfield Technical Community College Board of Trustees endorses the self-study as prepared and presented for the upcoming accreditation visit by the New England Commissioner of Higher Education.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have Vicky and Janae at the same time. We'll get it to both of them. Discussion.
Madam Chair, if I could, at this
Please.
time, if we were in person, what I would do is have us turn and give a hearty applause to Suzanne Smith and Christine Atwater as our co-chairs. This April, May will be about 2 years that I have been working with them on this most significant process that only happens once in a decade. I cannot thank them enough. They have poured themselves into the facilitation of this. So Chris and Suzanne, thank you so much for helping us move this along. It is incredibly significant. And I just want to echo that in front of our Board of Trustees.
And when we're on Zoom meetings, right, you have to maybe do something like that. So really, really appreciate it. I'll make some comments a little bit later. Nanya, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Mary Kate Murin,
Yes.
Alexander Anderson, Vicky Krause,
Yes.
Steve Grande, Eric Hagopian,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Maurice Lindsay,
Yes.
Janae McDonald,
Yes.
Elizabeth Posito,
Yes.
Jeff Sattler,
Yes.
and Max Starks.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. So we have a little bit of a new business for an additional motion. I do move that the Springfield Technical Community College Board of Trustees endorse and approve Trustee Spacito as our board secretary. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Bill Johnson, second.
Well, I think we'll all second. I'm not going to allow discussion. So can I call the roll, please, Nuna?
Yes. Mary Kate Murin,
Yes.
Alexander Anderson, Vicky Krause,
Yes, thank you, Betty.
yes, Steve Grande, Eric Hagopian,
Yes. And
Bill
thank
Johnson,
Yes.
Maurice Lindsay,
Yes.
Janae McDonald,
Yes.
Elizabeth Posito,
Think I have to abstain?
Yes, you need to vote for yourself. Yes.
Jeff Sattler,
Yes.
and Max Starks.
Yes.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I mean, it is very important that we do have an executive committee and a full board at all times. First, from my report, I want to second Dr. Cook's comments for Christina Atwater and Suzanne Smith, and thank you for all the hard work. I don't think there are enough words because you do have a life outside of STIC. We might not think that, and to spend, I know sometimes not, but to spend 2 years, you all led that charge, and how important this is from an accreditation perspective and for the college. And as we mentioned earlier, even the community, right? Because the community college does support a lot of our communities, surrounding communities and partners. There were some key findings, so hopefully you'll have some additional time to go through. I think you really want to start on page 38. Those were kind of those projections that we as subcommittees came through. But some of the key findings very quickly was that it really was brought out that the campus, we do really plan really well, right? There are opportunities for all of us as a collaborative for improvements in the monitoring of our progress and to enhance our communication. And I know I'm even trying to do that in my own professional life. So that is one of the findings. The second is the need to identify a shared governance process that is cross-collaborative across multiple entities within the community and the college. As trustees, we already affirmed that commitment, and that will be something that we all need to continue to work on together. And we'll need faculty, staff, administration, and the trustees, plus the students, to always participate in that. And really to be focusing on our central focus, which are our students, right? That's why we're all here. That's the importance of the accreditation. So thank you, Chris and Sue. I can't thank you enough. We will be there during the visit. So I think offline, I'll ask Betty, you're our new secretary. Maybe you can handle reaching out to our colleagues and see if we can scheduling little blocks during that visit period to make sure that we have some great trustee coverage. So I'll ask you to do, 1 or 2 hour blocks, and we'll ask Dr. Cook and Sue and Chris some of your help of, who should be there and who best could be supporting you and the college's program as we move forward, if that's okay.
Okay, first assignment.
Your first assignment. You didn't get off the hook so quickly.
Great, thank you.
I also want to acknowledge, it was brought up earlier, acknowledge the ad hoc committee chaired by Trustee Krause and Trustee McDonald. You put together a very robust and comprehensive process in cross collaboration with faculty, staff, administration, and you develop and implemented a really thoughtful process that allowed everyone to come to the table, have discussions, and I didn't want to leave out all the hard work of the committee members. So we made something work with the process. And Janae, I know you, Trustee McDonald, you mentioned that earlier, is that there was patience within the process, and that is most important as we embark on a new calendar year. And pretty soon we'll be, as I get older, time passes more quickly, we'll be in another school year in the matter of months. And we continue to be in unprecedented times. And I know it's been mentioned multiple times about vaccines and a vaccination program. Can't stress enough how important that will be, not only for our K through 12, but our community colleges and everyone. If there is, Dr. Cook, a way to ensure that STIC becomes a vaccination center, we are looking at that downtown. We will keep you up on that as a business also. But the importance of us to get vaccinated and to get back to some type of normalcy, so we can all be face to face. I love that I'm able to see you. I'd rather be in the same room, and eventually that will come. And so I know I remain committed to partnering with each others, with trustees, faculty, staff, and administration, and to the overall goal of supporting our students and transforming their lives. One other thing I will mention one other thing. So given that we're still on Zoom, that we can't meet face-to-face, I will ask trustees in the future to go on camera. So if you do need a camera, Dr. Cook and Nanette will be able to assist in that in an IT perspective too. I think it's really important that we all have the ability to see each other. Nanette, if you could send out an email, if I may ask your assistants, just to see if anyone needs cameras or any type of IT support would be wonderful. And then we can move forward with the new year of 2021, which I can't believe it is already. Any other additional comments from trustees before we end the meeting?
Yeah, if on camera, can I still smoke my cigar?
Absolutely. You can do anything you want in your own space.
We're in face-to-face, I'll smoke one with you.
We'll have to do that outside the buildings, but we'll find a smoking area. Again,
Yeah,
thank
outside
you.
the campus, I think.
Absolutely. Again, thank you so much. Appreciate everyone. Our next date board meeting is Monday, February 22nd. See how quickly it goes. Do I hear a motion to end the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Do I hear a second?
Second,
And Trustee
Bill Johnson.
Starks. And if you could call the roll, Nanette, to end the meeting?
Yes. Mary Kay Murin,
Yes.
Alexander Anderson, Vicky Krause,
Yes.
Steve Grande, Erica Gopian,
Yes.
Bill Johnson,
Yes.
Maurice Lindsay,
Yes.
Janae McDonald,
Yes.
Elizabeth Esposito,
Yes.
Jeff Sattler,
Yes.
and Max Starks.
Yes.
Great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much,
Good night.
everyone. Have a great week. But please remain